Greetings, friends, fellow patriots, fellow citizens, and even non-citizens, and welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention weekly news and opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm the president of the We the People Convention organization, which is the sponsor of this podcast. We want to open by always thanking our generous donors who have supported us for the past 17 years and pay not only for this podcast, but for our wonderful website at wethepeopleconvention.org and for our text messages and emails, which you should be getting, and you can get them if you go to wethepeopleconvention.org and sign up right on the front page. And also to pay for our donations and support of other conservative groups like Turning Point USA, like PragerU, like Through the Vote, like Tea Party Patriots, and on and on and on, that you and I have been supporting for the past 17 years because they, like us, are fighting to protect and defend your and my individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. We thank those of you who have been with us for a long time, and yes, we have thousands of you who have been with us since the very beginning, and we are gaining people, new people, through our social media posts on Instagram, Gab, Getter, True Social, YouTube, MeWe, on. So, welcome to all of you. What you're going to get today is a summary of the news that took place this week that affects your and my individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. And then we will talk about actions you can take and should take to protect yourself and our country. And so, yes, there's a lot of information here, but it's also about taking action, not just talking. That's not what we're about. We're about action. We're about participating in our country. We're not spectators, we're participants. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for those who donate. We greatly appreciate that. And let's get on with the news because there's a lot going on. Obviously, at this time last week, President Trump was waiting for a response from Iran as far as an agreement for a peace agreement before Trump went to China to meet with Xi. That didn't go so well. Let's just play this short video to kind of recap where we're at.
Fox, the UAE, can you believe this, has been secretly carrying out attacks on Iran in response to strikes on its energy infrastructure. Good for them. Excellent.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yanks is live in Tel Aviv with the very latest. Trey, what do you know?
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. The Middle East is bracing for the possibility that the region returns to war in the days ahead. Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad Khalibaf, posted to X overnight saying our armed forces are ready to deliver a well-deserved response to any aggression. Mistaken strategy and mistaken decisions will always lead to mistaken results. The whole world has already figured this out. We are prepared for all options. They will be surprised. The threatening language comes after President Trump rejected the Iranian response to the U.S. peace proposal, calling it a piece of garbage. As he indicated, the ceasefire is on life support.
It's unbelievably weak, I would say. I would call it the weakest right now. After reading that piece of garbage they sent us, I didn't even finish reading it. I said, I'm not going to waste my time reading it. I would say it's one of the weakest right now. It's on life support.
Do you believe a diplomatic solution is possible with Iran, or do you only have military options now?
No, I think it's very possible.
President Trump also indicated that Iran made commitments about the buried uranium and then didn't include those commitments in their response. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson said this on Monday.
Therefore, everything we proposed in our text consisted of reasonable demands, responsible proposals, and generous suggestions, not only for Iran's national interests, but also for the good, stability, and security of the entire region and the world.
We're also tracking reporting from Fox's Brett Baer that indicates the UAE took part in the war, striking Iran's Lavon Island around the time the ceasefire went into effect last month. Here in Israel, more cargo planes and refuelers are landing each day as the country prepares for the possibility that combat operations resume.
So, yeah, bottom line was Trump just completely rejected the Iranian, proposal, called it a piece of garbage. And And now we've got the UAE and Saudi Arabia actually taking part in the military operations, attacking Iran directly. So, I think that at the end where he says there's all kinds of cargo planes landing and all kinds of weapons because everyone's anticipating further military operations against Iran, and I agree with that. I think that may start as early as today. We're recording this on Saturday, May 18th or 16th, and I think it may happen this weekend because that's kind of what Trump's modus operandi has been. But let's just kind of look at some other things that are important. CENTCOM says that Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis all cut off from Iranian weapons and support. So this is one of the goals, right? What are the three goals of the war in Iran? They can't have a nuclear weapon. They can't have missile technology that can reach our allies in the United States. And they can't be a sponsor of terrorism. Those are the three demands. So this is a big development because, this is one of the three goals, right? Iran's ability to threaten its neighbors and U.S. interests in the region have been dramatically reduced, said a senior U.S. admiral. Iran has a significantly degraded threat, and they no longer threaten regional partners or the United States in ways that they were able to do so before across every domain. Admiral Brad Cooper, who heads U.S. Central Command, tells the Senate committee they've been significantly degraded. Cooper notes that Iran's armed proxies launched over 350 attacks on U.S. troops and diplomats in the 30 months before the recent war, an average of one every 3 days, killing 4 American soldiers. Today, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis are all cut off from Iran's weapons supply and support. This result was not foreordained. It's because of what we did. Cooper also says American forces have stopped using high-end munitions to shoot down Iranian drones and are now using lower-cost, weapons and technologies, which we've talked about on this podcast. So that's a big step. They can't do that. Then Trump, and we'll talk about Trump's trip to China in a minute, but he did say that China has committed to withholding military equipment from Iran. Well, this is important because if you cut off Iran from their money, if they can't get their oil out of the Gulf, through the Straits of Oman and to China, then how are they going to survive? How are they going to fight? And so President Trump said Thursday that Chinese President Xi Jinping committed to withholding military equipment from Iran during the bilateral meeting between the two leaders. He said he's not going to give military equipment. That's a big statement, said Trump. He said that strongly, but at the same time, he said, they buy a lot of their oil there and they'd like to keep that going. He'd like to see the Straits of Hormuz opened. So that was a big takeaway from the Trump-China trip, was that China is saying, we want Iran to open the Straits. So that's a big leverage point for us and for Trump. Why is this all happening? Well, OPEC oil production plunges 30% since the start of the Iran war. The 12-member cartel anticipates global oil demand will remain robust this year, but they're not going to be able to fulfill it. Crude oil production has declined by more than 30% since the start of the war in February. Output fell by 1.7 million barrels per day in April after production levels dropped by 7.9 billion barrels per day in March. The cartel said its latest monthly oil market report released on May 13th. So they can't get their oil out to sell it, and so this is part of the strategy that Trump's using, okay? And so, Trump, just basically, after he was done in China, he was talking to Sean Hannity and Brett Baer from Fox News, which I found interesting anyway. But during that interview, he basically said that he's going to stay the course and he's committed to doing the right thing for America and for the world. Listen to what he says.
They're afraid to make a deal. They don't know how to make a deal. They've never been put in this position before.
So you're going to hold out until they do?
Well, I'm going to do what's right. I have to do what's right.
But the strait should be open, right?
It should be open. Look, see, to stop the strait is very easy. All they have to do is say, we dropped a mine in the strait someplace. So you're at a little disadvantage, but that's okay. The strait will be open. They will not have a nuclear weapon, and the world will go on, and you will see gasoline prices drop, energy prices generally drop like no. Don't forget, They have a lot of boats that are loaded up with oil that are going to bring the oil out as soon as this is over. And I think it's going to end fast. They've been holding up the world for many, many years with the Strait. You know, they've used this many, many times. They said, we'll close the Strait. They've closed it in the past. They use it as a weapon. They're not using it as a weapon with me. And what they did, and actually what President Xi said last night, sort of smiling about it, he said, well, they close the Strait and then you close them.
But you think they're going to capitulate sometime soon?
Yeah, oh, sure.
Okay.
I have no doubt.
He has no doubt. That's important, right? He's got to have confidence in the plan, and he's got to, believe that the reports he's getting, are accurate. And getting China to, basically hang Iran out there by themselves was a big part of the trip, all right? So Trump is, he understands reality, and that reality is there's a price to pay for any war. And so this is a story you didn't hear enough about, but it's important. U.S. releases more oil from its strategic reserves. The Trump administration announced Monday, before he left for China, that it will loan 53.3 million barrels of crude oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to energy companies as part of a broader international effort aimed at easing pressure on global oil and fuel markets during the ongoing conflict with Iran. And the move comes after oil prices surged following disruptions linked to fighting involving Iran and concerns surrounding the Straits of Hormuz. The United States Department of Energy said 9 companies, including ExxonMobil, Trafigura, and Marathon Petroleum, accepted loans totaling about 58% of the 92.5 million barrels initially offered from the reserve. The administration has already loaned roughly 80 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve earlier this spring and is working toward a release of a total of 172 million barrels. Now, that still isn't our full capacity, but remember, our Strategic Petroleum capacity was greatly reduced when Joe Biden released a bunch of oil for political reasons to try to help them win the election. And that has hampered us to some degree. The United States agrees to the broader release in March through a coordinated agreement with more than 30 nations belonging to the International Energy Agency. The multinational arrangement called for approximately 400 million barrels of oil to be released globally to counter market instability caused by supply disruptions. Okay? So, again, remember, the Strategic Petroleum Reserves are for what reason? Why did we have them? In case of war. We're in war. That's why we need to use them, because that's what they're there for. You, the United American taxpayers, paid trillions of dollars to put that reserve together, and Trump's using it. But it's important that you see that he's sensitive to what's going on. So I was very pleased when last Sunday, Energy Secretary Wright was asked about whether there would be a possibility to suspend the federal gas tax, right? So, everybody's saying these gas prices are so high. Is our government doing everything they can to keep them as low as possible? Well, listen to what he said in this interview.
This debate over the gas tax. States like Georgia, Indiana, Utah have suspended their gas taxes. And there's a bill in Congress, actually, that would temporarily suspend the federal gas tax, which is 18 cents a gallon currently. Would you support suspending the federal gas tax to give families relief right now?
Yeah, all measures that can be taken to lower the price at the pump and lower the prices for Americans, this administration is in support of.
So the next day, President Trump, before he left for China, actually said he supports it and he would like to see it implemented, but he can't do it. Congress has to do it. Oh, yeah, let's see how well that goes. But you notice that she said that Utah and Georgia and other states have already acted. And here in Ohio, we had Ty Matthews, one of our House members, say that Ohio should temporarily suspend our gas tax. Well, right away, our rhino Democrat Governor DeWine rejects it. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine shuts down proposal to suspend the state gas tax. What do you say? Okay, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine has rejected a proposal to suspend gas tax or hit nearly $5 around the state. It's $4.99 here. It's down a little bit. It's like $4.65 now. Ohio House Reps Ty Matthews from Findlay, Ohio, has been discussing with some colleagues and they are considering a possible break on the state's motor fuel tax. The 38.5 cents. So in Ohio, it's 38.5 cents. In places like Pennsylvania, it's like 70 cents or something for gasoline and 47 cents per gallon for diesel fuel that we could suspend that. DeWine opposes the plan, arguing that the tax money is essential to maintain and construct roads, highways, and bridges, as well as fix potholes. We like to have good roads and we like to be able to drive, and we also know that when we have huge holes in our roads, that can have a real impact on your car, DeWine said. Yeah, what a genius. The money that the state gets from the fuel tax, is needed, and due to inflation, these dollars are 30% less effective now than they were in 2020. I think it would be very grave disservice to the people of the state of Ohio to suspend the user tax, which it really is what it is. And I think Ohioans will feel the pain of that in the months ahead as our roads deteriorate. Yeah, that was a perfect political ploy, because you know who gets all the money for those roads, for that construction bridges? Yeah, Democrat unions get all that money, okay? And so the problem was that a little story came out right when Governor DeWine was making that idiotic statement. And here's what it says. Revenues over $1 billion ahead of estimates through April. 2 months before the end of the fiscal 26 year, the State General Revenue Fund tax revenues continue to come in ahead of projections, exceeding estimates through April by nearly $1.2 billion, or 4.9%, according to preliminary data released Thursday by the Office of Budget and Management. Okay, revenues for the month of April alone were $338.9 million, or 13.3% over estimates. So here in Ohio, for those of you watching nationally and internationally, that we are already, our state government is bloated. It's like $100 billion a year. There are states with our population who spend half of what we spend. And that's why we have this effort by grassroots citizens to repeal the property taxes, which would cut our taxes by like $20 billion. And of course, you know, the establishment is fighting that tooth and nail. But here's a case where not only are we already being gouged disproportionate to other states, now they've collected $1.2 billion more than that. You talk about insult to injury. So I've been talking to Ty Matthews. I've been talking to Vivek Ramaswamy, Rob McCauley, who's the Senate president and also lieutenant governor candidate. I've been talking to House members. I've been talking to Robert Sprague, our treasurer. And so the bottom line is that we have the money, all right? We have to do this tax suspension. What I have proposed in writing to Vivek Ramaswamy and McCauley and those guys is that Ohio legislature override DeWine. See, he can veto it, but they've got the votes. Democrats and Republicans should be for this. You saw in the video that Democrats are already proposing, a suspension of the federal gas tax. So I think you can get a lot of Democrats. Matter of fact, I think you can get unanimous consent. And if the legislature has that many votes, DeWine can't veto it. And so what's the deal? Here's what we need to do to help the people of Ohio. And your state needs to do this as well. We need to say we're going to suspend the fuel tax in Ohio from now until the end of the year, or until the cost of regular gasoline returns to under $3 a gallon. And that's it. It's that simple. This would give the people of Ohio $1 billion. In other words, it's totally paid for with the money they already took from us. Okay? There's no reason to not do this. Zero reason. If you give a damn about the people of Ohio, if you really do care about how people are hurting, because what do you hear? All things, gas prices, 38.5 cents a gallon, plus the federal, which is 18, you're talking like 56 cents a gallon. We'd be under $4 a gallon in Ohio. Okay? So, first call to action. All you people in Ohio, call your House rep and your Senate rep and say, we want our money back. You took $1.2 billion more than you even need from us. We want it back, and we want it back now as a repeal or a suspension of the fuel tax. And the way this works, folks, is I didn't realize this until I researched it, but there's these wholesalers who pay the actual state tax. The wholesalers who bring gasoline into the state pay the tax to the state, and they build that cost into the price that goes to your local gas station. And so basically, gas prices should drop by 38.5 cents for gasoline and 47 cents for diesel, which would help our trucking companies by like $5,000 this year, each truck, okay? Call your House and Senate members in Ohio and demand they give us our damn money back, okay? And I'll link these documents on our podcast page. For you in the other states, why isn't your state doing this? Do you support the war? Do you support the president? Well, then what is your state doing? If President Trump is in favor of suspending the federal gas tax, why isn't your state working to suspend temporarily, right? Temporarily, the gas taxes in your state? Direct ask. It's up to you guys to light up the phones and get this out there, because it's just wrong. It's our money. It's our money. We want some back. Okay? So anyway, let's just move now to the whole, the whole thing with Trump and Xi, okay? So, highly anticipated trip to China. Trump loads up the plane with 17 of the top CEOs of the most successful companies on the globe. NVIDIA, Elon Musk is there, Bezos is there, Cook is there from Apple, just everyone you can name. And he says to Xi, I brought you the top people, not their lieutenants, not the secondary people. I brought you the top people in the world, the best businessmen in the world who want to do business with China. Are you going to open up China for us to do business? And, that was kind of the strategy for Trump. I don't know how much it worked. The bottom line is, it was kind of a nothing burger. Trump and Xi did the dance, okay? Complimenting each other, patting each other on the back, all the while not giving an inch. Xi, his big play was, if the U.S. doesn't, act responsibly when it comes to Taiwan, we could have, conflict with the United States. Trump did the right thing. Didn't back down, didn't challenge him, just didn't say anything, because nothing has changed. Taiwan is the most important place on the planet right now. 85% of the top chips that are behind AI are made in Taiwan. We can't allow China to take it, and we won't. Okay? So Xi made his play, didn't do any good. Trump made his play. I want you to help us, with Iran. And he kind of gave lip service. He said, we're not going to sell them weapons, though they probably still are, though we just blow their planes or ships out of the water and make it clear, no, you won't. We're not asking, we're telling you. And he said, we want to straight open. So, maybe Trump got a little bit there, but again, Xi didn't exactly say, yes, we're with you, and we're going to send minesweepers to help open the straits, right? So, there was a talk of they're going to China committed to buy 200 Boeing airplanes. No small deal, okay? That's a big thing. Boeing's one of our premier, businesses. And so there's also some things about soybeans, and there were some deals, but it was really a status quo. It was really just this, this dance between two powers trying to get advantage. And I don't know that anybody got advantage. Now, Xi and the leftist media throughout the United States are pushing this narrative that, this is China, the upstart company, the world's fastest growing economy and all that stuff, challenging the old United States, which is descending, and this point where we're crossing, where we're coming down and they're going up. And Trump just threw it back in his face and said, that was Joe Biden, who you paid to destroy our country. That's well, he didn't say that. I'm saying that. That was Joe Biden. Trump did say that. But that's not happening now. We're ascending. And folks, we are ascending. The Chinese economy was threatening us. In the Biden years, we were getting close to GDPs that were almost equal. Now, that has just spread out. We are doing better across the board than China, okay? And they got major problems because of their one-child policy where their demographics are working against them, okay? They aren't going to have the cheap labor because they aren't going to have the people to do it. Now, they're going to replace them with robots, but so are we. And so the idea that things should be made in China and Vietnam and all that idea is over. That's why places like Ashland, Ohio are booming again. And because of Trump's tariffs, people are moving here again because the age of China's ascendance is over. And Donald Trump is the one who made that happen. And you need to understand that, okay? So the trip, there's not a lot to announce. Not a lot to announce. But this one thing, which Trump did do, you'll just listen, because I'm like, what the hell?
I could tell them, I don't want any students. It's a very insulting thing to say to a country. They would then immediately go out and start building universities all over China. But if you don't have those students, good students, by the way, if you don't, and we do another thing, if they're good and they want to stay in America, we won't give them a green card and things like that. And that, not only them, but other countries. But if you want to see a university system die, take 500,000 people out of it. And the ones that won't be hurt are the top schools. The top schools will do fine, but your lower schools, the ones that don't do quite as well, they'll be dying all over the place. I frankly think that it's good that people come from other countries and they learn our culture, and many of them want to stay here. I think it's good. Not everybody agrees with me, and it doesn't sound like a very conservative position. And I'm a conservative guy. I'm really a common sense guy, I think, more than a conservative guy. I think MAGA is common sense, People understand we want strong borders, we want strong military, we want good education, we want low interest rates, we want... But
I think people would argue they worry about, do they have nefarious intentions?
Sure, I know, and we worry about that. And honestly, they do things to us and we do things to them. It's a very, very fine line, the whole thing with students. So they have 500,000 students, and our university system does great. It does great. You want to screw it up, take 500,000 students out. And you're gonna see bankruptcies at the lower end of good colleges, but they're not known or whatever. You're going to have a lot of problems. So it's something I'm always looking at.
Wow. Okay? How many of you guys agree with that? Raise your hands. Yeah, I wrote this on X. This ranks right up there with Trump saying, after we elected him the first time in 2016, that he was not going to lock up Hillary Clinton because the Clintons were good people, right? Despite us chanting, lock her up at every freaking rally, he says that. Yeah, how did that work out? Yeah, you were impeached because of Hillary Clinton. So let me get this straight. Our problem is that our colleges are indoctrinating our American children with Marxist ideology, and Trump thinks it's a good idea to allow 500,000 Chinese spies to attend our universities to help with indoctrination. Trump is worried about that the leftist colleges would go broke and shut down if he stopped the Chinese students, and that is a bad thing for them to shut down. Raise your hand if you think it's a bad thing if we had our colleges shut down, right? I don't think so. That's the goal, Mr. President. Wow. Really, Mr. President? Who is the enemy, sir? Who wants to kill you and tried to kill you, Mr. President? That would be the college-indoctrinated anti-American communists, right? This is unbelievable. We are not going to put up with it. You and you're going to go to whitehouse.gov/contacts and say, not only no, Hell no, Mr. President. Hell no. Oh, we do things to them and they do things to us, and that makes it okay for us to let them do things to us? No. The goal is to stop them from doing things to us, like spying on us, which they factually do, as I will show you, okay? And to keep doing what we do to them. Wow. And the colleges do good work. Mr. President, talk to your people about AI. Take a look. 25% of colleges are going bankrupt this year because their degrees are worthless. In the age of AI, you don't need to go to college. They don't have anything to offer you. We don't want to save them. We want to destroy them as soon as possible, Mr. President. And what a great idea. Let's start by deporting 500,000 Chinese. I don't know how he gets there. But he's right about one thing. He said he's a conservative guy, but he's really a common sense guy. Yeah, he's never been MAGA. He's really not. Because if MAGA is the patriots who believe in our Constitution and freedom and liberty and all that, you don't help the people who are destroying our country. You don't endorse Mitch McConnell, Tom Tillis, all the people who are destroying us, okay, which is what Trump did. So he's always been in this weird space. But that doesn't mean, because all the people say, we're like, Trump's like Obama. It's a cult. You guys never question him. Yeah, I think I'm doing a pretty good job of questioning him. I hope you're going to do a good job of questioning him. No, this doesn't stand. Call your congressmen and senators too and say, not only no, hell no. We want a bill passed that throws the Chinese out of our country and takes the damn land they've bought also. Trump went on to talk about that. So of all the things coming out of the China thing, the China trip, that was the last thing that we wanted to see, right? And again, we always bring receipts on this show. Just while he's in China, California mayor to plead guilty to acting as a Chinese agent. Elaine Wang, mayor of Arcadia, California, faces up to 10 years in prison, okay? The mayor of Arcadia, California, has agreed to plead guilty to operating as an emissary of the Chinese Communist Party, the Justice Department announced on Monday. After being charged with secretly carrying out the directives of a foreign government, resigned from her position as mayor of the Southern California city. Wang was expected to make her initial appearance Monday afternoon before a judge in district court in Los Angeles. According to court documents, from late 2020 through 2022, Wang and Yanning Mike's son, 65, of Chino Hills, California, her fiancé at the time and campaign treasurer, worked on behalf of instruction relayed by Chinese regime operatives. The two ran a website called U.S. News Center, marketed to the local Chinese American community as a news outlet, but it was used to disseminate CCP propaganda, according to the prosecutors. Mr. Trump, that's the problem. They're here on our shores, and there's way more than that. And then this story comes out. Jury convicts Chinese American who was operating China's New York City police station. And this is a story we had a long time ago that most people don't even know about. China set up police stations in New York City, in Los Angeles, in Toronto, Canada, to do what? To intimidate Chinese nationals who are in the United States so they would not help get information out about how bad China is. A jury found the Chinese American who ran Beijing's undercover police station in New York City guilty of being a foreign agent for China. He's also found guilty of obstructing justice by leaking WeChat message documents, his direct communication with his contact, and the Chinese Ministry of Public Security. Liu Jiawang, 64, community leader and former president of America-China Change Association, was convicted on May 13th. The jury found him not guilty of conspiring with other agents, but acting on his own. Liu is now being held accountable. The police station has seen its sinister purposes disrupted. Joseph Nicola, U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of New York, said in a statement, our office remains resolute in protecting the rights of people seeking freedom from repression and speaking out to bring democracy, reform, and human rights to China. Okay? This is an ongoing Chinese-funded plot that Xi knows for sure they're doing it. And Trump makes that statement. Wow, it's just crazy. Okay, it's just crazy. Right, whitehouse.gov/contacts. Let your feelings be known and call your senators and congressmen. This was a good story too, because again, we always talk about Trump is just playing 4D chess. Lots of you guys don't like that. I don't care. He is. And he's working, and you'll see in his podcast, where he's working simultaneously in so many areas. It's awe-inspiring. It's unbelievable. So while he's going to China, we got CIA Director Ratcliffe going to Cuba in Havana to talk to them about what's going to be a surrender of their country. I mean, that's what's going on. CIA Director John Ratcliffe met with Cuban officials in Havana on Thursday, according to a CIA official and a statement from the Cuban government. Ratcliffe met with Cuba's interior minister, the head of its intelligence services, and Raulito Rodriguez Castro, who is like the grandson of Fidel Castro, a government official who is a grandson of former President Raul Castro, according to CIA officials. Cuba faces an energy crisis after the U.S. military in January arrested the president of Venezuela, who was sending oil to Cuba for soldiers that were protecting Maduro in Venezuela. That was the quid pro quo. And then as Marco Rubio said, I think in a video I played last week, where I said Trump's all in on Cuba, that what would happen? Venezuela would send free oil to Cuba. The leadership of Cuba would sell it for cash, keep 60% of the cash, and only use 40% for the people of Cuba. That's how corrupt they are. That's what we're trying to stop. The CIA official said Ratcliffe was there to personally deliver President Trump's message that the United States is prepared to seriously engage on economic and security issues, but only if Cuba makes fundamental changes, which in my opinion means if they get rid of the communist regime and start, moving towards a democratic society, which is, unlike Islamic states, is possible in Cuba. Okay, it is possible in Cuba. So, the international, order is just being worked on across the board. From Iran to China to Cuba, Trump is just changing the world. And it's to the benefit of America, even though there's this short-term pain for the war. But again, what are our elected officials doing, to help lessen the pain? Because what we're finding out is that we are being ripped off. We the people, our government is full of people who don't respect our money, don't respect our hard work, who take our money and give it away to people who hate America and who are trying to overthrow the United States. And so the next big story this week was the whole fraud issue. And oh my goodness gracious. I mean, folks, I keep telling you, fraud is going to be one of the key issues in the November election. When this is all said and done, you are not going to vote for the Democrats who give your money away to their political allies to take advantage of you. You're not going to do that. You're smart enough. And here's, Dr. Oz, who's doing a fabulous job. It's going to make your skin crawl. Listen to this.
Unfortunately, we have a reality that, again, we got to face. A third of all hospices, a third of all these programs in the entire country are in Los Angeles. Ask yourself, how is that possible? It's not. There are not that many people dying in Los Angeles. We're not talking about California, just Los Angeles. So Kim and the team, with Janina Ugo and a bunch of other great folks, went through the list of all the people, and we believe that at least half of the hospices in the entire area around Los Angeles are fraudulent. And today we announced 800 of those hospices have been suspended. That's getting us, close to where we think we should be. 800 hospices that last year charged the federal taxpayer $1.4 billion will no longer be paid. Now, Mr. Vice President, if your core business was shut down by the federal government, would you call?
Yes.
You would call. Crickets. We have less than 20 who have complained. We're not even sure those are legitimate. 800 hospices shut down, and we're not hearing much. It's crickets out there. So we believe we're on the right path here. Next is a nationwide moratorium on all new hospice and home health care. Why is that possible? Because when we squeeze the balloon in California and slow their growth of hospice and now take away 800, the payments to 800 hospices, we know what those fraudsters do. They move to nearby Nevada. Next door, Nevada has a 7-fold increase in hospice already. Arizona, Texas, they're moving across the country. So we've today announcing a moratorium nationally. There will be no new hospices or home health care open in this country. If you have the program now, you can keep it. You can go to ones that already exist. We're not taking away any services, but there will be no new ones, licenses granted until we can figure out a better way of working across government.
Now, think about that. Think about the scope of this fraud. He's talking half of all of them are scams. Half of all of them. This is hospice care. Then there's SNAP in Maine, and then there's the Medicare assistance in Ohio. It's going to be trillions of dollars, literally. Two things. Great that they're cutting off the money, right? Great that they're freezing, that no new ones are going to happen, right? That's great. Where's the money going? When you cut off the money, we the people want it back. We want you to pay down the deficit. We don't want that money in those agencies anymore because you clearly don't need that $1.2 billion, do you? Don't give it to them. This is where that case I talked to you about that's going to come up in the Supreme Court somewhere next year about impoundment, where Trump is arguing that the president has the right to say to Congress, yeah, you budgeted that amount of money, but we don't need it because it's being stolen, okay? So we're not going to spend it and put it towards the deficit. And then Congress, call your bloody Congress and say, you've got to cut these programs so the competition is stronger so that the people who really need it will fight for these benefits and the scamsters won't get it. It's unbelievable. And then J.D. Vance, went to Maine and did a great job in Maine. You should see that press conference talking about it was the Democrat governor was directly involved in their attorney general in Maine with these Somalis stealing your money from these programs and doing ballot harvesting and donating to candidates. And then there was a report that came out about Walz in Minnesota. That's not done yet. Final Walz fraud report rips culture of tolerance as Minnesota taxpayers face billions in alleged losses. Not alleged, they're losses. Minnesota Congressman Tom Emmer demands accountability from Governor Tim Walz regarding the state's massive fraud probe. Emmer alleges Walz is either incompetent or complicit. He's not incompetent. There's whistleblowers. There's people who testified. I played for you the video of the woman saying, I told them, I showed them this was wrong. And they attacked me and caused me racist and transferred me. They knew it. He wasn't incompetent. They were complicit in the theft of what? $9 billion in taxpayer funds, highlighting the culture of corruption. Federal prosecutors have estimated the fraud against 14 Medicaid programs could total $9 billion in Minnesota alone. A comprehensive final report released Tuesday by the Minnesota House Fraud Prevention and State Agency Oversight Committee concluded its work from a current session takes aim at a culture of tolerance under Governor Tim Walz that it says allowed serial fraudsters to fleece taxpayers for billions of dollars. The 85-page final report, which follows 24 hearings and hundreds of whistleblower tips, paints a grim picture of state government malfeasance, incompetence, and active suppression of internal warnings. The company concluded that the scale of fraud in Minnesota is massive and unprecedented, costing taxpayers an estimated $300 million in federal meal program fraud and up to $9 billion in Medicaid fraud. The report asserts that the total amount of stolen across multiple programs, including child care and SNAP, is significantly higher than previously believed. When is Walz and Ellison and the mayor of Minneapolis and the other criminals in their government, when are they going to be charged? When are they going to be charged? And now we've frozen money to Minnesota. How are we getting money back? Where are we going to get the money back? Okay? And then Ohio, now it's not just blue states, kids. It's not just, California and Minnesota. Now it's Ohio. Ohio is becoming the poster child. The Daily Wire did a 3-part expose on the fraud in Ohio. It's horrific, is the only way to put it. And it's shaken the Republican-controlled Ohio to its core, all right? So, and full disclosure, We the People Convention, your donations help support the Daily Wire. We've been donating them for years because they are doing children's videos that we like, and they're doing this kind of reporting. So just know that's another place where your donations go. So this story comes out today, or this week. Ohio restores Medicaid anti-fraud measures after Daily Wire investigation. Ohio says it's immediately implementing anti-fraud measures in the home health sector days after claiming it already had such measures, and after a daily report showed how the administration of Governor Mike DeWine actually turned off previously existing fraud protections. The about face comes after Vice President J.D. Vance, who also hails from Ohio, announced on Wednesday that the federal government would be suspending the enrollment of any new home health companies in the Medicaid program for 6 months. DeWine announced in response that he was implementing several new fraud prevention initiatives that have long been in development to fight fraud, waste, and abuse in Medicare. Horse hockey, as you'll see next. The announcement comes amid a Daily Wire investigation series into home health care waste, fraud, and abuse. It comes just a week after the DeWine administration attempted to dismiss the Daily Wire series, telling other media outlets that Ohio has extensive oversight mechanisms in place, including safeguards called electronic visit verification. Except DeWine had to turn it off. He had him turn it off. Ohio spends $1 billion a year on home health care, most often to people who aren't medical professionals, to provide services like chores, companionship, and conversation. The people getting paid by Medicare are frequently patients of own family members. So bottom line is, we the people, you in other states, those of us in Ohio, are paying $1 billion a year, mostly to illegal immigrants, and definitely immigrants, whether they're legal or not, who've learned how to scam us. We're paying them $1 billion to take care of their parents and their grandparents. Not because their parents and grandparents can't, not because you do that for free, but because we have a program that at the beginning, here's the idea. At the beginning, they said, if we can keep seniors at home longer, it is cheaper for the state and the government than having them go to nursing homes and adult daycare centers, okay? So let's provide money to help them stay at home. Well, okay, that makes sense if they need it. Now, they weren't verifying they were even doing the work. There was no auditing. There was nothing. Listen to this report from Fox News, because now it's not just a Daily Wire. It's all over the place, and it's horrible.
Congressman Warren Davidson is calling for stronger oversight of Medicaid after a recent audit found an error rate of nearly 16% in the state system. That means that millions or even billions of dollars could be at risk for waste or fraud. Our senior correspondent Mike Tobin shows us tonight. He's in our Midwest Bureau.
Scrutiny over Medicaid fraud now turns to suspicious billing in Ohio, something the vice president has been talking about for months.
We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis, it's also happening in states like Ohio.
A state audit found almost 40% of Medicaid's home health services dollars spent in Ohio went to just one county, Franklin County, of which Columbus is the seat. And more than 40% of that money went to just 2 zip codes. The addresses are all within 4 miles of each other. The overall tax dollars in question run into the billions.
$800 million to $4 billion is real money. It's real money for Bob and Betty Buckeye, who we all work for, and it's real money that we want to see get fixed.
Home health care providers are supposed to care for people in the dignity and comfort of their own homes. Fox News tracked 2 buildings within the Franklin County zip codes that house a total of more than 5 dozen home health care businesses between them. The suspicion, like other Medicaid fraud cases, is that services are billed but underdelivered or not delivered at all.
We, of course, want to make sure that the payments are going to people that, let's say in an extreme case, is the person that's receiving home care still alive? Are they being cared for? Does someone show up and care for them? What does that care look like?
Governor Mike DeWine wrote that Ohio has extensive oversight mechanisms like signed activity logs, background checks on providers, and electronic visit verification. But the state auditor tells us loopholes exist.
The numbers don't reflect that they have the controls in place to stop what could be a very large situation of fraud.
Now, placed in charge of the Medicaid Fraud Task Force, the vice president is turning investigators on his home state. And as he posted on X, to take immediate action to prosecute any fraudsters involved and stop all further payments as appropriate. John?
A lot of this going around. Mike Tobin for us in Chicago. Mike, thank you.
Yeah. So get this. The Speaker of the House, Matt Huffman, went public this week and said that the House and Senate had passed no less than 11 different changes to help close the loopholes in this program, and DeWine vetoed every one. The people who are running this program under DeWine knew exactly what's going on. So they talked about the electronic, see, there's software that they have that you have to have on your phone that when you go to take care of someone you're getting paid to take care of, you have to log in like a time card, right? Remember the time clocks? You older people remember time clocks? Okay, you log into the phone, and when you're done, you say what you're doing, and you log out. Oh, yeah, that's GPS is tracked, so they know you're physically at the place where the person you're supposed to be taking care of is. Oh, yeah, DeWine told them they could turn that off. They didn't log it, and so what do you think the reason for that was? So they could commit fraud. They knew. And so the rumors in Ohio is Mike DeWine's not going to finish his term as governor. Mike DeWine's going to be driven out because he is on the hook. Every Republican is pointing the finger at Mike DeWine. The House Speaker, the Senate Speaker, the Treasurer, the Auditor, Faber, they all know that this was going on. They tried to get reports from DeWine, just like in Minneapolis. They tried to get reports, and they never could get them. This is a huge scandal. You in Ohio, you need to be calling your reps. You need to be calling the auditor and the treasurer and demand that they get to the bottom of this. Vance, I've been told that the DOJ and the FBI are going to be doing a press conference here like next week. There are going to be criminal charges, and some of those people are going to be Republicans. And that's what we need to see, because it's just corrupt as hell. And no one's more corrupt than Mike DeWine, okay? Who, by the way, also is the big defender of the Haitians in Springfield, remember? Right? And he's also involved with Haiti, with his family as an orphanage there. And they were involved with the Clintons, who stole billions of dollars that was supposed to help Haiti. This is going to be a big deal in Ohio. You need to pay attention. But it's just the tip of the iceberg. Those of you in other states understand this is happening everywhere. Everywhere. What is your state doing? Are they putting in place these things? How do you know that people are doing what you're paying them to do? Ask your state rep. Ask them. You want to know. They are stealing us blind. Who's they? They are the left. All these programs from Woodrow Wilson on, all the 100 years of social welfare programs that are not the job of the federal government, never in the Constitution. No, they sold us as bill of goods because we're so wealthy. We should be able to help everyone. Little Sisters of the Poor, the orphans. Yeah, no, everybody. It was all a scam. I'm telling you, the $38 trillion of debt that you and I are on the hook for, that was overspending for decades by our government, is all money that was stolen and is used to overthrow the U.S. government and Western civilization globally. Just look at the USAID stuff. That's how big this is, folks. And when is Congress going to cut the frickin' budget? That's the worst part of it. And they won't, because they benefit Republicans and Democrats. And that story about Ohio is your proof. There's no way to blame the Dems on this. The Republicans in Ohio are the ones who are the thieves, who are enabling the thieves and didn't stop it. And we got elections coming up this fall where the people running for other state offices are the auditor and the treasurer. Keith Faber, the auditor, is running for Attorney General. Robert Sprague is running for Secretary of State. Okay? He's our treasurer. I said to both of them, listen, I talked to Robert Sprague directly and Frank LaRose, who's the Secretary of State, who's running to be treasurer. I said, listen, you guys need to lead this. You need to be on stage with the DOJ showing them where the bodies are. You need to be a force for good, or you're not going to win in the fall. Why would we elect someone for another state job if they failed in the previous state job? Pretty good question, isn't it? You should be asking that question. You should be demanding that those people lead the investigation and that they show that people should be arrested and convicted for stealing our money. All right. So I'm all fired up there at the end. I hope you enjoyed the first half of the podcast. I hope that you felt that we did a decent job of explaining, what's going on with the war. I think we're winning. I don't have any doubt. I think I'm showing you evidence. They can only last so long. Like I told you guys before, you bleed them of money. I don't care what your ideology is. You can't fight. You can't fight if you got no money. All right? That's what Trump's doing. It's only a matter of time. Choke them out to the max. Do not stop. And I think part of that economic warfare is another set of, days of bombing. Just take out everything you can. Just make it so the people there understand you got a choice. Just like Japan. Japan was just like these guys. They had an unbelievable ideology in World War II. They were never going to surrender. They were going to fight to the death, and they did, until we dropped nuclear weapons on them. And then they understood. There is no out for you. You're done. We're not going to drop a nuclear weapon on Iran to keep them from dropping nuclear weapons on us. We don't have to. We're just going to take out everything that matters to a society. When you don't have food, when you don't have water, you don't have money, you pretty much surrender. That's what we're going to do. And those of you who say, well, there's never been a war won through bombing and stuff. Well, this isn't just bombing. Economic warfare that's effective, that does work. That does work. So I hope that helps you. I hope this discussion about, the gas prices and things, I hope you'll act on getting states to suspend the state gas tax, okay? Especially here in Ohio. And I hope you'll just be screaming about the fraud in your state and the investigations, because it's not just blue states, not even close. And we haven't even come close at all. J.D. Vance is going to be a busy man because there's so much fraud, he doesn't have enough time between now and November to discover it all. It's going to be epic. All right, so we're going to take a short break. You've been listening to the We the People Convention weekly news and opinion podcast, and my name is Tom Zawistowski. We'll be back after these short messages. The We the People Convention news and opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button. And if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. Something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. So if you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And, it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share, this, whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People convention site, and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot. All right, and welcome back to the second half of the We the People Convention News and Opinion Weekly podcast. We are glad you're with us. We are on YouTube. We are on, Rumble. We are, we have a great thing on our website that's called a chapters player. And it usually takes till Sunday for the AI to do this, but we have our regular player where you can watch the show, and you can go fast forward and stuff to watch the show. But it also has this chapters player where every story listed has its own link, and you can click. You can look down the stories and say, well, I didn't know about that. What's that? Click, and it'll go right there and start the video on that. And then it gives you a link you can copy and text or email to other people to say, hey, you got to see this. Here's this video that you didn't hear about, okay? And that corresponds with all the stories links to so every story I cover in our podcast, we then have the link to the original video or to the original newspaper article or website story or X post that talks about that. So, share it, spread the news, because the bottom line is, it's not just about donating. We thank our donors. We couldn't survive without our donors, but we know you all can't give, and that's okay. Everyone has two other things. You got to tell people about this podcast, because the more informed our fellow citizens are, the better off we'll all be. And number two, you'll get more people to take action to support your efforts to protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, right? So you want more people calling in your state to talk about why aren't we reducing the gas tax, right? You want more people demanding that the fraud in your state be exposed. Don't wait. They're stealing our money every day, okay? So we're not just about talk, we're about action. And we're glad you're here, and we know you take action because you write to me. When you take action, say, Tom, I wrote to the president and said, it's stupid to have the Chinese students here. Write to me, info@wethepeopleconvention.org, and say, I wrote to the president. I got 10 people to write to the president, because we're participants. We're not, just spectators in our governance. We are participants. So, okay, I've got a really big second half of the show, and stay to the end or fast forward to the end if you don't have enough time, because I got some stories at the end that are freaking, I'm excited about. Really good, okay? So let's get after it. First story. Everyone in the Democratic Party has money except for the Democratic Party. What is this story about? In a statement about, in a statement about federal finance, okay, who has what money? What's interesting is that the federal filings lay out the numbers. The DNC, right, the Democratic Party National Committee, reported $13.9 million in cash on hand at the end of March and $18.4 million in debt. The Democratic Party is in debt, putting the committee roughly $4.5 million underwater. It's the only National Party committee on either side of the aisle carrying a debt at all. The Republican National Committee, by contrast, holds $116.8 million in cash with no debt. The Republican Senatorial Committee has $43 million. The National Republican Congressional Committee has $78 million. So all combined, it's over $200 million. So those of you who are like, oh, the Democrats are going to win in November and we can't win, not to mention redistricting, we're loaded for bear. They always had, in your and my lifetime, the Democrat Party and their committees always had more money than Republicans. Now, in Trump world, they don't. And it's stark. So let me just give that to you again, because there's a little chart in this article, which I will link to, okay? And so this is what we can say. The Democratic National Committee has minus $4.5 million. The Republican Committee has $116 million, okay? The Democrat Senatorial Committee has $36.5 million. The Republican Senatorial Committee has $43 million. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee has $69.9 million. The National Republican Congressional Committee has $78.2 million. We're kicking their butts, and we're going to kick their butts. And we got to spend that money wisely. But the bottom line is, we're winning. They just don't want you to know that. And why are we winning? Because they've gone nuts. Trump said they're a bunch of lunatics, okay? And here's your proof. Markey, when Dems win midterms, we'll investigate Trump, his family, and cronies. This is a statement on this video from Thursday on MS Now, the weeknight. Senator Ed Markey from Massachusetts said, this is what will happen when they win. If you and I are dumb enough to let them win power ever again, this is what they're planning. First thing is, we have to restore all Medicaid cuts. Oh, you mean the Medicaid that you've been stealing to fund your party and steal elections? All the Affordable Care Act cuts, Affordable Health Care Act cuts. Oh yeah, you mean the ones that aren't affordable that have been bankrupting us? All the cuts for wind and solar. Oh, you mean all the money at Solyndra and all these places that were just given, our tax dollars given to your cronies? That money? All electric vehicles and batteries, which will give us true energy independence. We're going to have to ensure that there is real accountability for the military. So that's where we're doing the investigations to get to the bottom of the corruption, which is at the heart of the Trump administration, between Trump, his family members, his cronies, and all their policies, which have been put together, And so all of that has to be done in the first 3 months of 2027. A year from now, that's their plan. Okay, after the Democrats get the gavel, get the subpoena power in the House and Senate, we had to make them accountable for corruption, which is at the heart of what this administration is all about. And we with you, that's going to be the test, but I think it's going to be a test that Democrats are going to pass because the American people are coming with pitchforks. They're coming with pitchforks towards Republicans to take them out this November, and that mandate is going to be very clear to Democrats. Wow, the man needs medication. He's delusional. How many of you, raise your hands, how many of you want to see all the money that was being stolen to us restored? Is that what you're for? How does that make your life better? How many of you want to see more taxes? How many of you want to see the government getting bigger and bigger and bigger? They have no platform that anyone wants. And the people coming with pitchforks are the Marxist Antifa people that are going to try to overthrow our government, which I warned you about last week, because they're going to riot this summer because they can't win in November. They're not going to win in November. And we're going to have to stop them with martial law or whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. And I mean that. Okay? So they're nuts. And you need to share that story, right? A direct ask. You need to send that story. Here's the story. It'll be linked on our podcast page. You can click on the link and copy the link and send it to your friends and say, is this what you want? How many of your friends, how many people you know think are going to reply, oh, yeah, that's what I want. I don't think so. And then this story, I just briefly mentioned it because I just want to explain to you. You know, when Trump is saying, oh, yeah, we wouldn't want the colleges to go broke. We wouldn't want the commies in the colleges to lose their jobs, right? Because he said, they do good. They're so good. Yeah, 6-1 Democrat speakers dominate 2026 commencement stages at top 100 universities. 6-1, they're being indoctrinated right to the end. Democrats account for 86% of partisan keynote speakers. Democrats outnumber Republican commencement speakers for the 5th year in a row. The analysis found only 6 Republican or Republican-leaning speakers compared to 38 Democrat or Democrat-leaning speakers. Okay? The indoctrination continues as you're walking out the door. They're telling you, Trump's a fascist, America sucks, we're a bunch of racists, burn it all down. As they're walking out the door. And Trump wants to make sure they don't go broke. Yeah, whitehouse.gov/contacts. Okay? That's what that's all about. So then we go into the whole redistricting, which is, we just showed the Democrats don't have any money, and now with redistricting, they're done. And I've said to you, this is the year we win the war. This is the year the Democrat Communist Party goes the way of the Whigs. Because if they can't win any elections, why would they exist? This is the year we make sure they don't exist. So we've got all kinds of stories, and I'm just going to touch on them and then give you a recap. Missouri High Court smacks down redistricting challenge and referendum end run. So basically in Missouri, they went to the courts to try to stop the redistricting. They redistricted. We got one more seat. Okay, so that was good in Missouri. But in other states like, let's see, here's Mississippi, all right? Mississippi governor just proved he's a spineless, low-T coward. He canceled the special session and is delaying redistricting until 2027, handing Benny Thompson a free pass to the 2026 midterms instead of flipping Mississippi with 2 red to 4. Okay? Again, the Republicans are betraying us. South Carolina Republicans reject redistricting. Despite being newly empowered by the Calise, Louisiana Supreme Court ruling, South Carolina's Republican-controlled Senate rejected moving ahead with redistricting plans that would likely unseat the state's sole Democrat in Congress, Representative Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn, the guy who brought you Obama, brought you Biden. The guy who, when Biden was losing to Bernie Sanders, rigged the South Carolina primary to make Joe Biden, who was like in 4th place, their nominee, right? Republicans are protecting him. South Carolina Senate kills redistricting resolution 29-17. 5 Republicans joined all Democrats to kill it. Yeah, so those are setbacks, and they're upsetting, but here's the bigger picture. So let me just go for it. Alabama, Republicans could gain 1 seat. California, the Democrats gained from 3 to 5, so we're -4 there. In Florida, Republicans are likely to gain 1 to 4, so now we're even, okay? Then you go, Missouri, I just talked about, 1 seat. North Carolina, likely to gain 1 seat, we're up 2. Ohio, likely to gain up to 2 seats. I think it's only 1, that's 3. Tennessee did their redistricting, and I have a story about that next. That's another seat. That's up 4. Texas, likely to gain 3 to 5 seats. That's 9. Let's see. Georgia is not going to do it. Kemp, who's a coward and never Trump hater, they're going to have a session, but they're only going to do it for 2028, don't you know? Because Kemp doesn't want Trump as president. He'd love to see Trump impeached. He's a coward. He's a traitor, quite frankly. Can't wait for the Georgia investigation on their elections that he oversaw and let happen, that stole the country, that Governor Kemp was involved with. Louisiana could gain 1 seat, and I said South Carolina could gain 1 seat. So net, here's the bottom line. We hold like a 4-seat majority in the House right now. With the redistricting, it's going to be like double digits, 10, 11, 12, and it's going to be more later, okay? So just know that when you fight, you win. And you talk about fighting, I love this. Tennessee, man, I love you guys in Tennessee. Tennessee House Speaker strips Democrats from committee assignments following disruptions seeking to block redistricting vote. This is just awesome. Tennessee House Speaker Cameron Sexton announced Tuesday that Democratic lawmakers will be removed from all current House standing committees and subcommittee assignments following disruptions to last week's special legislative session on congressional redistricting. The disciplinary action comes after the Tennessee General Assembly approved a new congressional redistricting plan expected to produce a 9-0 Republican congressional delegation. Which Governor Bill Lee signed into law. During the 3-day legislative session, chaos erupted inside the Tennessee Capitol as Democratic lawmakers and protesters staged loud demonstrations against the proposed redistricting maps. Videos from the House floor showed tense confrontations, including Democratic legislators walking out in protest while demonstrators and Democratic members using whistles and air horns to disrupt the proceedings. State troopers were forced to remove several protesters from the gallery. In a letter sent to House Minority Leader Karen Camper, Sexton accused members of the Democratic caucus of attempting to disrupt the democratic and legislative process and create disorder on the House floor. And so basically, that's the way to do it. If you're going to fight, fight to win. And here's the irony of all ironies. The irony of all ironies, because everything the communist left does is hypocrisy, it's propaganda. So they're protesting that Memphis, which was drawn to be a black district, was representing blacks, except the congressman was a white man who, by the way, just yesterday said he's not going to run because he can't win if he doesn't have a rigged district. And guess who the Republican nominee for that congressional seat is? A black woman Republican. Oh, but we're the racists, right? We're the racists, okay? So again, where's the crime? Where's the fraud? Again, Ohio, full of Republicans, lots of crime and fraud. But it's so deep and it's so close to power. Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff pleads guilty in federal corruption case linked to Xavier Becerra. Dana Williamson, former chief of staff of California Governor Gavin Newsom, pleaded guilty Thursday morning in federal court to 3 felony charges: conspiracy to commit bank fraud and wire fraud, subscribing to a false tax return, and making false statements to federal agents. As part of the plea bargain, the remaining 20 counts against her will be dismissed. 20 more counts. Court documents reveal that between February 2022 and September 2024, Williams and multiple co-conspirators, including then HHS Secretary Xavier Becerra, Chief of Staff Sean McCluskey, stole approximately $225,000 from Becerra's dormant state political campaign account and funneled it through various business entities and disguised it as paid to McCluskey's spouse for what was in reality a no-show job. McCluskey arranged for Williamson's firm to be paid $10,000 a month by the campaign to purportedly oversee its required filings while Becerra served in the Biden administration, even though a campaign treasurer was already under contract to handle that. That money eventually found its way to McCluskey's spouse, who Williams had set up as an employee with a no-show job. Okay? Williamson also underreported her income. Okay, now this is Gavin Newsom's former chief of staff. She underreported her income by a total of $1,718,000 between 2021 and 2023 by claiming personal expenses such as a lavish 58th birthday vacation to Mexico, designer handbags, home renovation costs, family law attorneys, and as business expenses. Okay? The people in our government are crooks. That's our problem. And the problem is that the other crooks don't prosecute them, right? And that's why what Trump is doing, while we say it's not enough, well, perp walks, we want to see handcuffs. We talked about that a little last week, and we're going to talk a little more about it at the end of this podcast. The reality is we're doing more than anyone ever imagined is possible. Trump is doing more. Trump's team, Kash Patel, okay, the DOJ, they're doing amazing work because you know what? The whole thing is corrupt. Not some of it, all of it. At every level, your local county, your township. This money comes from the federal government. Is it being handled properly? Don't count on it. Verify it. Look into it, right? Because it's just crazy. So, again, I want to run this story because what we are about, what the period we are in now, is restoring truth to American history. You have lived in an era of propaganda and lies that is unprecedented. There was no Russia, right? Trump wasn't coordinating with Putin. There was China interference in our elections, but they don't want you to see that, right? January 6th was an insurrection by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrat Communist Party, not by the January 6th defendants, okay? It's a lie. We have to correct the lie for all of history. So I want to put this story in for that purpose. Former BLM activist goes scorched earth on scam group and says systemic racism in U.S. isn't real. Yeah, tell us something we didn't know when Black Lives Matter hoax psyops was going on. A former Black Lives Matter activist turned conservative influencer blasted the social justice organization as a scam and insisted that Democrats are the party of racism and violence. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt about it. The biggest racists are college indoctrinated white women who hate white men. It's called racism. Xavier DeRousseau, 29, revealed that he did a complete 180 from his liberal upbringing during the 2020 George Floyd riots, as he realized the moment that it was a money grab and he was indoctrinated. Once I started looking at the conservative side of the argument, I started realizing, oh wait, socialism has literally never worked. Duh. BLM has always been a scam, and the Democratic Party has always been the party of racism and violence, he said on the podcast with Riley Gaines, the former NCAA swimmer who's been fighting against men in sports, women's sports. I've just been drinking the Kool-Aid because that was the indoctrination that was put upon me from the age as a little child, he said. After George Floyd's death, I just started seeing people exploiting the movement so much, and I started realizing how performative a lot of the activism was. And it was like these white Antifa members saying that they were stealing all of these shoes and TVs in the name of justice for reparations. It's like there's so many layers of why that just wasn't making sense to me. He said he was particularly irked by the anti-police sentiment that emerged on the left at the time, as he had friends and family who were policemen. I thought it was weird that so many people were demonizing every single cop, right? So here he is, he's waking up. In retrospect, I came to understand that yes, there are racist people, but ultimately the average American and the majority of people in this country are so adamantly against racism that it's foolish to even consider that systemic racism is still a trope in this country because we're so far removed from that. Thank you, sir. Welcome to the real world. Glad you were able to wake up because you've been abused as a child by being lied to about the greatest country in the world. Welcome to the right side. Okay, so there's BLM, which has been getting cracked down on. We talked about Antifa, nonprofit crackdown. Feds target the liberal dark money infrastructure, and I have said to you for years, how do we defeat the left? Stop them from taking our money, and that's what Trump is doing across the board. And you saw the Democratic numbers. Why is that? Well, because a lot of their money they stole through U.S. aid, right, and other things. So a dual-pronged investigative and regulatory pincer movement is moving to close on nonprofits and dark money networks that have long anchored the American left's political and cultural infrastructure. From Congress to the Justice Department and the IRS, the Trump administration has allied lawmakers are examining the autonomy and tax-exempt status enjoyed by some of the most influential progressive organizations in the country. The latest development came Thursday when the House Oversight Committee issued a subpoena to 1630 Fund, the massive nonprofit hub managed by Arabella Advisors. The subpoena demands internal communications and financial records regarding a social media influencer operation known as the Chorus Program. The core of the House inquiry involves the Chorus Program's potential role in circumventing federal campaign finance laws. Specifically, the investigations focus on the payment of social media influencers to disseminate political messaging without disclosing mandated by campaign finance law. So what they were doing was simple. And we knew this during Hillary Clinton. We knew this, okay? It's illegal to coordinate with a candidate. What does that mean? We, the People Convention, the Freedom for All PAC, our super PAC, the Ohio Citizens PAC, our state PAC, We are not allowed to coordinate, meaning a candidate can say, geez, Tom, you know what we really need? We need an ad that says this to attack our candidate. And then you take your PAC money and produce that ad. That's illegal. You go to jail for that, okay? Well, during the Hillary Clinton campaign, and even back during Obama, we had situations where there were social media influencers, and there were things on X and Facebook and whatever was around at that time where they were directly meeting with the Clinton campaign and then going out and selling the lie she wanted to be sold. We knew that. We knew it was an election violation. No one prosecuted him. Why? Because all the people in the Federal Elections Commission, all the people in the DOJ, all the people in your state government were frickin' in on it. And so now, here's your evidence. Trump and those people are going after him. And we talked about the Southern Poverty Law Center. That's all part of this. These are all, quote unquote, nonprofits that were totally political organizations. And they were illegally operating. And they need to lose their tax-exempt status. And they need to be charged with federal election crimes. And they need to go to prison. Because they knew the law and they intentionally broke it. And that's why, what is our fight? For those of you who are new, what is this podcast about? What are we the people fighting for first and foremost? Equal justice under the law. Because why? If we don't have that, we're not a country at all. The whole deal, the benefit, the amazing thing about the United States of America was that unlike every other form of government in the history of man, which was people ruled by men, either a king, a monarch, a parliament, dictators, whatever, we, the people, in our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution, are a nation ruled by law. That law has to be equal in order to be credible. And it's not. It's a two-tiered justice system. And that's what the fight is. Once you restore equal justice under the law, now you have a chance to be free. Okay? And that's what we're about. Individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. You can't have it when you don't have the rule of law. That's the fight we're fighting. And so when they say, oh, Trump is just out, Markey is saying that Trump is coming after his political enemies and they're corrupt. No, we're following the law. Unlike in Virginia where they tried to rig the congressional districts by breaking their own constitution and being found wrong by the law, in Tennessee, they're following the law. It's the way it has to work, but it's not working. So you should be excited about the fact that the Congress and the FBI and the DOJ are trying to reestablish this stuff. And then talk about the law. Talk about the law. This is at the heart of it for all of us because COVID so deeply damaged us. So I'm listening to the radio, I'm driving, and I turn on a thing, and there's this guy talking, and I'm like blown away. CIA whistleblower reveals Fauci and CIA covered up of COVID lab leak. We all knew that was true. But here was a guy testifying in front of the Senate where not a single Democrat would show up to tell the truth about Fauci and what they did. And Fauci needs to be arrested right now. Listen up.
But your conclusion is that changing from the scientific consensus of it being from a lab to a neutral position by the CIA was significantly influenced by Anthony Fauci?
It was significantly influenced by Anthony Fauci's injecting himself into the IC. And to go to the second part of your question about what happened, particularly during the 90-day study, we have documentation that shows that as of August 12th, the CIA was considering calling this a lab leak, August 12th of 2021. And then that changed on August 17th of 2021. Right. And unfortunately, because the CIA would not provide us documentation that we asked for, we have no idea why that changed. And that's
And they weren't
sort of
alone
essential.
because we know the FBI was coming to the same conclusion that it was lab leak as well as the FBI.
Yeah. So why did they lie? Why didn't they want you to know that it was a leak from the Wuhan lab? Because Fauci funded it with my taxpayer dollars. Before the COVID, they had this mysterious, war game thing where they did a whole thing about there's a bad virus that's leaked and we've got to, shut down people's media and all that stuff. And it was the pre-play of what they did during COVID. It was a planned assault to get Donald Trump out of the government, out of presidency. That's what it was. And China was involved. Fauci is an agent of China. So are the rest of these people who got millions of dollars to do this. We want to see him arrested. He is a global criminal. And everybody involved in the NIH and the CDC, they knew they were lying. The evidence is overwhelming, and we are still paying the price. Many people, some of you, are still hurting because of what they did to you. They killed your parents and your grandparents. They hurt your children. There's got to be accountability. So that was good to see that hearing. Where are the charges? God, I hope they're working on it. I hope they're working on it. All right. Let's go through some other things that are good news, okay? Got some good stuff here the rest of the podcast. This is really good news. Finally, Senate confirms Kevin Warsh as new Fed chair in a vote, Senate vote 54-45 on May 13th. He was approved. Only one Democrat. John Fetterman was the only one who voted for this guy, okay? Well, why? Because they loved the fact that the current Fed chair, the former Fed chair, was jamming Trump. They love the fact that the former Fed chair that Trump appointed was helping Biden by lowering interest rates when he shouldn't have and not lowering them when he should. Trump called them out. This Warsh guy is highly respected. He's going to reform the Fed. He's not going to be, they're going to remain their independence. That's what Senator Warren is saying. Oh, Trump's just going to be telling the Fed what to do. We think they should abolish the Fed. I don't know about you. I think they should abolish the Fed. I don't understand how the Fed helps us. But one of the things he's going to do is he's going to change things. Like I railed against this 12 years ago. The Federal Reserve would consider rising employment as inflationary because it costs companies money. And so they would change interest rates to stop companies from hiring you. How nuts is that a federal, well, again, the Fed is a pseudo-federal agency, would be working against employment of Americans? That's how nuts this is. This guy is going to make changes for the better, particularly in the age of AI, and I'm happy about that. You should watch that. I want to just do a shout out to this guy. Never heard of him. Never heard of him. You never heard of him. U.S. Border Patrol Chief Michael Banks resigns. Okay? There's his picture right there. This guy is a stone cold patriot. And I want you to know his name, Michael Banks. Okay? We thank U.S. Border Patrol Chief Michael Banks for his decades of service to this country and congratulate him on his second retirement after returning to serve during one of the most challenging periods for border security. During his time as chief, the border was transformed from chaos to the most secure border ever recorded. We wish him and his family well. The Georgia native had a long history working, for federal agencies. The first 2 years of the Biden administration, he said, I watched what they did to the Border Patrol and retired and went to work for the state of Texas. Remember, Texas was trying to close the border separate from the Biden people trying to open it. I watched what they continue to do, not just the men and women of the Border Patrol, but to the mission of the Border Patrol and to border security, and I couldn't wait to come back and take on this challenge. President Donald Trump selected Banks to be the agency's top leader in 2025, a year ago. The chief worked to implement Trump's administrative goals of making the border secure and to prohibit the flow of illegal drugs. He has been remarkably successful. The border is sealed. When they say, oh, we need new laws, we can't do that. Yeah, this guy, Chief Michael Banks, he did it. Thank you. Thank you, Michael Banks. You are a real patriot. And if you know him, if you're in Georgia, if you have some way of contacting him, please thank him profusely. What a patriot. This was good news. New ATF director vows to refocus from lawful gun owners to violent criminals. What a concept this is. Robert Cekada, C-E-K-A-D-A, the newly confirmed director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosive, wants to refocus the agency's efforts on fighting violent crime rather than regulating legal gun ownership. We should be focusing on the criminals, not each other, Cicada told the subcommittee on federal law enforcement at the House committee on Thursday. He was called to testify by the subcommittee on how the agency would handle sensitive data related to gun owners, why the agency has proposed 34 new rules, and whether it has an illegal firearms registry. This guy is turning the tables, okay? Democrats in the subcommittee criticized his appointment, saying it indicated that President Donald Trump's administration has been captured by the firearms industry and the NRA. Screw you, commies. The only reason you want our guns is so you could rule over us. That's a great appointment. Thank you, President Trump, and thank you for confirming him, Senate. That's awesome. This was also awesome, and I sent out a text to this because it's a story you just weren't paying attention to, but you need to. Trump administration cracks down on price fixing in the beef industry. So what the heck is this about? Go to our website at wethepeopleconvention.org, click on that article or in the video section, watch this press conference. What has been going on in our beef industry is unbelievable. Our farmers and ranchers have been getting screwed for years, and no one did a damn thing to help them, okay? And guess what? It's all being done by outside forces like Brazilians. The Justice Department confirms its active investigation of potential antitrust violations in U.S. cattle and beef markets, reviewing more than 3 million documents and interviewing industry participants as federal officials scrutinize whether highly concentrated meatpacking power has contributed to high beef prices. You think it might? You think the fact there's only 4 meatpacking companies in the country that are owned, and 2 of them are owned by foreign entities? You think that might have been a problem with pricing? The 4 largest beef processors control more than 85% of the U.S. processing market, half of which are Brazilian-owned. Trump administration officials noted on Monday's news conference where Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche urged whistleblowers to capitalize on turning on bad actors who are contributing to jacking up meat prices. Here's what was going on, folks, and you got to watch this. You got to watch this. They had an app. They actually had an app where they would put in the prices they were paying to farmers and ranchers, and then the app would come up with what they should charge, and all 4 of them would charge the same price. That's called price fixing. And we let them do it. The U.S. government, who's supposed to be over, right, the agriculture, right, those little stamps on your meat that was inspected. Let this happen. How? We've put 100,000 ranchers out of business. The cost of beef is way more than it should be because that's what the left wanted to do. That's what Bill Gates and the other commies wanted to do. Now, we'll see what happens. The investigation is just open. Whistleblowers, where are you? Come on, man. Let's break this up. What a disaster. Oh, my gosh. And so, yeah, I'm not surprised consumer prices rose by 3% annually in April. That's not good, folks. That the consumer price index, which is what consumers pay for a wide range of goods and services, increased at a faster than expected pace. The war, the cost of oil, that's the big driver. Why? Because people don't understand. When they're selling you on the Green New Scam and solar and wind and all that stuff, they just completely discounted what you and I know. All the products that are made by petroleum, from plastics to drugs to all kinds of transportation of food to your market, fertilizers, are all products from petroleum. They were trying to stop it. And so, yes, our prices went up. You know that. But we're working to get them down, and when the war ends, they're going to come down. You know that's a fact. We just got to stay with Trump and fight it. But here's the stuff that just, I had to throw in here. I had to throw it in here because I said to you, it's all broken. It's not like, oh, we really have a good government and there's just a few things that need to be fixed, right? Like Mike DeWine was trying to tell us in Ohio, which is just a bold-faced lie, okay? Watch this little clip, because I know this is random, but you'll know why I play it after you watch it.
Get a knob on a Blackhawk radio that would break 4 times a month on average for the last 20 years, and it will ground the entire helicopter. And this knob costs us about $6 to $8 to 3D print. But when we go to the actual provider of this knob, they won't sell us the knob. So instead, for the last 20 years, 4 times per month, we have paid $40,000 to replace a system that could be fixed with a simple 1-hour 3D printed $6 knob. And the reason we sit here and the reason we have so many hard conversations about these existing platforms is we can't go get the IP rights to it, and we are stuck oftentimes. And the reason we find the ISV and the FLORA and all of the things that we have recently negotiated for to be so powerful is in every instance we have the intellectual property, and this will never happen again. And so we need your help to go get all of that IP.
Hey, thank you for that answer, and also thank you for that vignette too. I mean, that makes me angry. And I think it makes American taxpayers angry that our services are held hostage to certain contractors that are just bilking the government while making it impossible for us to actually be ready to fight with the equipment that we've already purchased. That doesn't make any sense to me, and I know it doesn't make sense to you. And
yeah, does that make any sense to you? Okay, and again, those contractors donate big money to that legislator, not, I don't know specifically him, but legislators, so that they don't get scrutiny. They just get the money. We're paying $40,000 4 times a month for a $6 knob. And they let it happen. But now the Trump administration is trying to stop it. And so in the new National Defense Authorization Act, which is being discussed, they're demanding that anything we buy from any contractor, that the military owns the intellectual property rights so that we can fix it ourselves and not be held hostage. We have to break the entire industrial military complex that Truman warned us about, not Truman, Eisenhower warned us about in 1958. It's still destroying us. This idea that we need a $1.5 trillion military budget is nuts. In the age of AI, when you're replacing $5 or $10 million missiles, one missile with a drone that costs $30,000, where are the savings? And it's fear-mongering. Oh, we gotta spend this money. No, we gotta get our money's worth. Oh, it drives you crazy. But you see why we are where we are. But you can see that if we can change it, if we can fight it, how great will America be when Trump says this will be the golden age? You can see it. We just have to do it. And you and I have to fight for it. Okay? So this is a monumental year in so many ways. The world is being changed. Our nation is being changed. The deep state is being disassembled. Okay? We're trying to reestablish the rule of law and free elections. So the Supreme Court has already played a big role. I told you, the decision about racial gerrymandering was massive. It guarantees we win in the fall. And not because we're cheating, but because they were cheating and we're stopping them from cheating. The left did this intentionally. They knew this was how they could win when they shouldn't have won. Supreme Court makes a difference. Here are 9 decisions that are coming down the pike that are going to make a big difference. I want you to know what they are. So by the end of June, these will all be announced. Birthright citizenship. We've talked about it. The oral arguments, the justices seem to be on the side of letting birthright citizenship continue. But since then, There have been lots of amicus briefs. These are things filed by law firms and advocacy groups arguing against it. I am hopeful that they will rule that just because you're born on our soil, you're not an American citizen. We're praying for that. You should pray for it. I'm asking you to pray for that. They're going to decide a case about, men and girls sports, a West Virginia law that prevents men from being in women's sports. They're going to rule on that. I think we'll win that. There's this case about Monsanto weed killer, and that's been going on for years. People have been winning lawsuits about that causes cancer and stuff. They're going to decide on that. That's not as important to our country, but it's an important case. Trump's ability to fire bureaucrats. One of the main legal complaints leveled against the Trump second administration was that he fired high-level bureaucrats without good reasons. Leaders of so-called independent agencies, such as the Federal Trade Commission, sued. And so the Supreme Court is going to decide, does the president have the right to fire people in these pseudo-government agencies, not directly in the executive branch? That'll be a big decision. Federal independence, like the FTC Act, another law known as the Federal Reserve Act, said presidents couldn't remove high-level officials without cause. This was a law the Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook said when she challenged Trump's attempt to fire her last year. So again, federal independence, can the president of the United States run the executive branch or not? Definition of election day. This is a biggie. And I think we're going to win this one, and it's critical. The 2020 presidential election reinvigorated debate over mail-in ballots, a controversial method of voting that Trump and others argue is vulnerable to fraud. Multiple states, including Mississippi, have allowed mail-in ballots to be counted on after Election Day as long as they are postmarked on or before that day. Trump and the Republican National Committee argue that the practice violates a federal law that defines Election Day as the Tuesday next after the first Monday in November. We think they're going to rule that Election Day is Election Day. That alone. See, it's much easier to cheat. They did this in Ohio, in Cuyahoga County, all the time. I mean, going back to the Bush elections in 1984, 1990, or whatever it was, okay? It must have been the 2020 election. So what would happen? In Ohio, before they had all the electronic machines and it was manually recounting, Cuyahoga County, the big Democratic county in Cleveland, okay, would always be the last ones to report. You know why? Because they needed to know how many votes they needed to steal the election. So they would wait. Okay, they weren't incompetent. It was intentional. And then they would feed ballots through the machines multiple times until they got the outcome they wanted. That's just a fact, folks. That happened in Cleveland, Ohio for years. And everyone knew it. And so why is Election Day being Election Day so important? Because if California doesn't know how many votes behind they are in these House seats in Southern California, which we won, Republicans won like 6 House seats in Southern California on Election Day. 2 weeks later, we won 1. They stole them. They cheated. Huge decision. Deportation protections. The court's most recent oral arguments focused on the Department of Homeland Security's termination of deportation protections for thousands of Haitians and Syrians. Temporary protected status prevents nationals of certain countries from being removed if conditions in their home country would make returning unsafe. Okay? Basically, this is another scam. The Dems, who want open borders to destroy our country and to steal your vote, okay, and deconstruct the melting pot that was America, right? Multiculturalism. Come into our country and act like you're still in your country. That was the Marxist plan to destroy us. Well, part of that was that, hey, we'll give you temporary status. There's a war in Ghana. We'll bring in a bunch of people from Ghana because it's unsafe for them there under temporary immigration status. Except it was never revoked. It was really permanent. Trump said, Haitians out of Springfield, Ohio. Oh, you can't do that. Supreme Court's going to rule on that. It's critical. Campaign finance. How much protection does the First Amendment afford political parties when they spend money on campaigns? That's one question the Supreme Court is expected to address in a case called National Republican Senatorial Committee versus Federal Elections Committee. The case originated with a lawsuit that brought by then Senate candidate J.D. Vance, who argued that Congress violated the First Amendment with the Federal Election Campaign Act. The law restricts how much political parties and candidates' campaigns can coordinate their spending. I talked about that earlier in the podcast. What is coordinating? Can a campaign tell a PAC, I need this ad, and the PACO does that. Okay, that's going to be an interesting ruling. And finally, IQ and death penalty cases. The Supreme Court held in 2002 that states could not execute criminals who were mentally or intellectually disabled. Doing so, a majority of court said, would violate the 8th Amendment that bars cruel and unusual punishment. Since the decision, lower courts have wrestled with how to determine whether someone is intellectually disabled. This is the point that drives me crazy. They say, oh, that mass gunman or the guy who tried to kill Trump was nuts. He's crazy. He's suicidal. And then they act like that should exempt them from being prosecuted. That shouldn't exempt you. I'm sorry. That is not a defense. If you are an illegal immigrant and you murder my daughter, you need to die as soon as possible. Okay? But to say, well, they were, they didn't know what they were doing, so we can't kill them? Man, I'm going to be watching the IQ death penalty thing, okay? And then the last one is deportation protections. So big decisions coming that will change your world, that will affect our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So be ready for that. So then I have some really cool stories to finish up with, all right? I want to play this video from John Solomon. He was on Dan Bongino's show, and it gives you some hope that what's going on behind the scenes is more than you think, more than you've been told. And I hope to God John Solomon is right. I trust John Solomon, but I've told you he is the New York Times to this administration. He's the guy they leak to. Hopefully, he's right.
Bunch of lazy senators who want to threaten the filibuster and not get off their feet and talk and really represent the people and stand for what they believe in. And all the American people are asking John Thune to do is to restore the Senate to the way it used to work before Mitch McConnell's lazy filibuster ideas kind of came into play. And I think that the American people are going to be there. Here's what I think is going to happen, Dan. And I think you probably know some of this because you had a foresight into some of the things that the Bureau now knows that was kept from the American public. I think Donald Trump is going to change the narrative in America. I think he's going to change some senators' minds, and he's going to do it by revealing some of the things that Chris Wray and that Chris Krebs and other major officials who were in charge of the integrity of our elections and who told us it was a perfect election in 2020. He's going to start revealing some of the intelligence that was kept from the American people. And we're going to see that our foreign adversaries have monkeyed with our system more than we knew, more than those driver's licenses coming into Chicago that you helped get all of us to understand about a few months ago, about China sending fake driver's licenses to help Joe Biden in. There are going to be significant efforts by foreign powers, some friends, some enemies, that were trying to meddle in the system, and they got pretty far down that path. And I think when senators realized their state could have been targeted, when senators realized that the intention of the identities of some of their voters might have been assumed, I think there's going to be a different debate in America. And I think if the president takes the time to educate people and show them that maybe the stories we got from the last leadership weren't true, I think he's going to pick off the votes. And then the American people are going to put some pressure on John Thune, and they're going to surgically implant a stiff back, and he's going to change that filibuster for this particular thing, make it a standing filibuster, make the Democrats talk till they drop, and then we'll get a vote in the summer. But I think there's some big, significant, and very troubling revelations about the vulnerabilities of our elections that the president is about to unveil on the American public.
I hope so, John. I hope so. Because I know for a fact they're there. I mean, this is not, in question. The Chinese interfered with our election, flat out. We know that for a fact. The machines were corrupt. We know that for a fact, okay? And we've just not been able to tell the story. And here, John Solomon is saying the President of the United States is going to tell the story. And I said to you earlier in this podcast, part of the main function we are doing right now is to restore truth to American history. The 2020 election was stolen intentionally by the communist left, including foreign members of the Communist Party, the Chinese and others, okay? We need to prove that. Pray that this happens, that John Solomon is right. And if we get the SAVE Act out of it on top of it, it's over. The Democrat communists go the way of the Whigs. The American people get our elections back. We actually get to elect the people we want, not the people we're told that we have to elect. So I wanted to play that with you because it was important. I don't know, look down the road that you weren't. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know how many of you watch Dan Bongino anymore. So I will put that on our podcast page. You can share that with others. I think it's important. A couple more things. Right now, today, I'm recording this on Saturday, May 16th. Glenn Beck is in United Kingdom. He is speaking at a very big and important event with Tommy Robinson, who has been fighting the Muslim, takeover of England, and this horrible leader Stammer, who is they're just taking over England, and this is going to be a massive rally. And Glenn Beck was basically told yesterday on his show he's in England, he's getting ready to speak, and the government of England is saying, if you speak at this rally, you will never be allowed to come to England again. And Glenn Beck said, I don't care. I'm going to speak with these people. This is like our January 6th. And the Prime Minister released a statement condemning this movement, accusing its organizers of spreading hatred and division. He said, my government will not obstruct peaceful protests, but we will respond firmly to hatred. If it turns violent, we will enforce the law. Summer also mentioned that any individual attempting to provoke unrest would be barred from entering the country. Beck commented Stammer's video felt alarmingly familiar and reminiscent of the bad feeling that Glenn Beck had before the setup that was the January 6th riots at the Capitol. He thinks they're being set up. Stammer actually said that we will be doing facial recognition of every person who attends this event, because this is war and it's global. And the struggle we are fighting here is the same struggle in England, in France, in Germany, in the Netherlands, in Hungary. This is a fight against global communism and the World Economic Forum and all the people who want to rule over us. Individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity is not just for Americans. There are others fighting. Tommy Robbins is putting himself in severe danger. Okay? But this is going to happen in Ireland. This is going to happen everywhere. I ask you all to say a prayer right now for Glenn Beck, for Tommy Robinson, and for the people attending that event, because prayers work. Prayers work. I believe in prayer. I hope you believe in prayer. And here's proof that prayers work. Last night, I was shocked to see, right before I went to bed, Colorado governor cuts Tina Peters' prison sentence in half, will release her on parole on June 1st. Wow. There she is. There she is. A Gold Star mom who fought for election integrity and has been in prison since 2020. Peters' 9-year prison sentence was cut in half, and he ordered the 70-year-old who has become a national martyr for election conspiracy theorists, right? Yeah, we're all conspiracy theorists. Yeah, wait till the stuff John Solomon talks about comes out. To be released on parole June 1st. Peters' sentence for orchestrating a security breach of her county's election system in 2021 in a failed attempt to uncover voter fraud is now 4 years and 4.5 months under the clemency order issued by the governor. She, because of her incorrect and unpopular speech, got an unduly harsh sentence, Polis said Friday in an interview with Colorado Sun, adding that he believes her new sentence is still very harsh. I'm not pardoning her, said the Democratic governor. He explained, I publicly have said very early on I would not even consider a pardon. She's a convicted felon. She deserves to be a convicted felon. She will remain a convicted felon. The extraordinary but expected decision put Polis at odds not only with fellow Democrats, but also with many Republicans in Colorado, including the man who prosecuted Peters. Peters, in a post on social media, said, thank you, Governor Polis. I made mistakes, and for those, I'm sorry. 5 years ago, I misled the Secretary of State when allowing a person to gain access to our voting equipment. That was wrong. I have learned and grown during my time in prison and going forward. She said, I plan to do my best through legal means to support election integrity. She said, I'm grateful for a second chance and an early release, and I love looking forward to doing good work in the world. She's not saying that there's no election fraud. She's standing up and saying, I will continue to pursue the exposure of election fraud. But she's a real patriot, and what was done to her was heinous. And the fact that a Democratic governor did this for her kind of, I think, is the tell. It's the tell. And so then that story, I mean, thank God, thank you, God, for making a guy like Paulus do this. That's your prayers being answered. Then this story came out, which I just didn't pick up. It was buried. And actually, I had a friend of ours, a family member, bring this story to my attention. But as Paul Harvey used to say, here's the rest of the story. Donald Trump has been fighting the IRS for leaking illegally his tax returns. He was seeking $10 billion. Then this rest of the story came out this morning. Trump IRS settlement could compensate January 6th political prisoners. What? What? Are you kidding me? Get this, because the person railing against me was saying Trump's only in it for himself. He just steals money left and right. He's going to get $10 billion from we the taxpayers through the IRS for their leak of his tax returns and pocket it. And I said, no, he won't. He'll probably give it to a charity or whatever, but we need, because me personally, Tom Zawistowski and the Portage County Tea Party and the Ohio Liberty Coalition, we sued the IRS for $3.2 million for targeting us. And we won $3.2 million because they wronged us. I didn't like the fact that it was our taxpayer dollars. I wanted Lois Lerner and Barack Obama to go to prison for what they intentionally did to the Tea Party through the IRS. I want the people in the Biden IRS and the Obama IRS to go after them for leaking Trump's tax returns, which gave material damage to Trump. So I'm fine with Trump suing for $10 billion. But this, I did not see coming. This is awesome. Donald Trump is set to drop his $10 billion lawsuits against the Internal Revenue suit in exchange for the creation of a fund that will pay up to $1.7 billion to some of his political allies, including people involved with the January 6th political riot, ABC News reported on Thursday night. The president sues the IRS in January after a contractor at the agency leaked his tax returns in 2019 and 2020 to help steal the 2020 election. That's why they did it. His son, Donald Trump Jr., and Eric Trump, who run the Trump Organization, are also suing. Based on the leak, the Times reported in 2020 that the billionaire president paid just $750 in income taxes in 2016 and 2017. The leak came from Charles Littleton, a former IRS contractor who worked for Booz Allen. He pled guilty to unauthorized disclosure of tax returns and was sentenced in 2024 to a maximum of 5 years. On Tuesday, the New York Times reported that the Department of Justice, which is representing the IRS in the case, has been holding internal discussions about settling the lawsuits. According to ABC News, those discussions apparently yielded an outcome in which conservatives who claim they were unfairly targeted by the Biden administration will receive compensation. That includes the more than 1,500 people charged or convicted in connection with the January 6th Capitol riots, citing sources familiar with the matter. President Donald Trump is expected to drop his $10 billion lawsuit in exchange for creation of a $1.7 billion fund to compensate those who were wrongfully targeted by the Biden administration. The commission overseeing the compensation fund would have a total authority to hand out approximately $1.7 billion in taxpayer funds to settle claims brought by anyone who alleged they were harmed by the Biden administration's weaponization of the legal system, including the nearly 1,600 individuals charged in connection with the January 6th Capitol attack, as well as potential entities associated with President Trump himself. Okay? ABC knows that the arrangement is not final, and add that the compensation fund is the main condition for Trump to drop a series of legal actions. Trump is also suing the for $230 million from the Department of Justice over the FBI's investigation into potential ties between the 2016 campaign and Russia, as well as the execution of the warrants at his Mar-a-Lago residence in 2022. Okay? The settlement terms are expected to prohibit Trump from directly receiving payments related to those three legal claims. However, entities associated with Trump are not explicitly barred from filing additional claims. What does that mean? That means we said this all along. Trump pardoned the January 6th people, but how do they get their lives back? They lost their houses. They paid legal expenses. They're still hurting. All right? And you and I have our organization has given money to help them. Okay? But the government wronged them. This is brilliant. Trump is going to have $1.7 billion fund. For who? Carter Page, right? They destroyed that man. He needs his money back. Navarro, Steve Bannon. They were all victims. General Mike Flynn. All these people were hurt intentionally through illegal efforts by the Biden Justice Department, by the Biden FBI, by Christopher Wray. This is awesome. You should be excited. And so, maybe when you do, whitehouse.gov/contacts to say President Trump, get the frickin' Chinese students out of our country, you need to do another post that says, President Trump, God bless you for making it right. Equal justice under the law. Congress should be doing this. Yeah, they're too cowardly. They could give trillions of dollars to scam artists, but not to patriots. Donald Trump is giving money to the patriots who earned it, who deserve it. God bless you, Donald J. Trump. God bless you. I hope this story makes your day, and I hope you'll share it. It's posted on our website. Just go to our website. Trump IRS settlement could compensate January 6th political prisoners. Share that story. It'll be linked on our podcast page. Okay? And so make sure, as we close this podcast, to tell people about this podcast. I hope you're as excited as I am about what John Solomon said, about the fact that Tina Peters is free, the fact that Donald Trump is going to take care of our patriots. I hope you'll share this podcast. I hope you'll write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and say, you're wrong about this. I disagree about that. I agree with Trump on Chinese students or something. You don't think there's fraud in your state. Or that you'll write to me and say, I took action. I called my state senators to cut the gas tax. I took action in defense of individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Send me story ideas. There's a lot in this podcast. You won't get this anywhere else. And maybe that's too much. I don't know. But it's the truth. If you think it's not the truth, prove me wrong. We work hard to tell you the truth. I'm not here to lie to you. We can't lie to ourselves or to anyone else. You can't have freedom and liberty and prosperity if you're a liar. So I hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. I hope you'll write to me. I hope you'll have a great week. I hope you'll be a happy warrior. And I hope you'll be, participating in protecting and defending our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, because that's the only way you're going to keep it. Okay? I'm going to wrap up today's podcast. You've been listening to the We the People Convention Weekly News and Opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. May God bless you and continue to bless the United States of America. Because, boy, we are so blessed. See you next week.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes